Welcome very, very much to Manhattan Network and and the broader public access cable television realm, which is the unique ability for the people of the United States to communicate, much in the way it seems to me they're trying to do in Libya with their People's Congress. We might talk about that, but
yes,
Saadun, welcome very much.
Thank you very much, Harold.
And in the audience, it's a pleasure to welcome to the program an academic, a Libyan academic. His name is Saadun Ismail Suayeh. And he's an academic. He's a translator of even into poetic translation. We're going to let you know about that. He's a scholar, and he's also an alumnus of a university where I did my doctoral work in Bloomington, Indiana, University of Indiana, so we have that commonality. And as I say, he's from the country of Libya. We're going to be talking about that country and about his work. And Saadun, welcome really very, very much to cable television.
Thank you very much, Harold. Thank you. It's a great pleasure for me also.
Okay, please share with us. I like to do. You've seen a couple of the programs of mine.
Indeed,
your own background, born and raised, educated a little bit, and then we'll talk about the country of Libya, both culturally and somewhat a little bit politically and so forth. But share your own background, if you would, please.
Well, in terms of my own background, I was born on May 25th, 1947. Which makes me a Gemini. I was born in a small town actually to the east of Tripoli, about 120 kilometers of Tripoli, called Homs. Okay. It's a coastal town, so the house I was born in was just about 300 meters away from the Mediterranean.
Well, that's a wonderful thing. You had that nice seaside view. Yes.
Exactly. So I've always kept that love for the sea.
That's about 2,000 kilometers they have on the Mediterranean.
Indeed, Libya I think has the longest coastline on the southern Mediterranean.
On the southern Mediterranean, and they have these classical, like Leptis Magna.
Oh, that's beautiful. I don't know whether you had a chance to see any of that.
Yes, of course I have, yeah.
The Leptis Magna, the Sobrata. And Tripoli itself, of course, was called Oya, which is a Phoenician name.
That's right, they were Phoenician early,
and
way
then
back.
turned into Tripolis, I think the three cities, hence Tarapolis.
Yeah.
So after, I think when I was about 4 years old, my father was inspector of schools for it used to be called the Eastern Province. It was the late 40s. You know,
late 40s,
in the aftermath of World War II.
Late 40s, the war was over.
Indeed. And Libya at that point, when I was born, was still under, well, technically British occupation, British and French. So France was in the south, and Britain was on the north. So Tripoli, or Tripolitania as they used to call it, was very much under British administration.
Was there was a Wheelus, a SAC base named
Wheelus? Yes,
that must have been
the Wheelus
American.
base, I remember that very well. That came right after the independence, 1951, Libya became independent. There was a decision from the United Nations.
That was one of the very first that under the UN system
in
the post-colonial era.
For a country that was granted its independence by the UN.
Again, Libya sets a historical pace that continues.
That is true. That is true.
Anyway,
that is true. You know, sort of being a vanguard in a sense. So we moved to Tripoli. That's the family. I was the only son, actually. My parents know. So. And Tripoli is actually my father is from Tripoli, so Tripoli is actually my hometown. And I grew up in Tripoli for my, I did my primary school there. What we have, the junior high school, then the university, and I graduated in 1969.
69, the year of the independence.
Actually, I graduated in June 1969. The revolution took place in September 1969.
Actually, it took place about 40 years from tomorrow when this program will air.
Indeed.
September 1
that is correct,
the 40th anniversary
correct,
of the independence movement, or the independence movement.
Yes, and it's really wonderful that we're doing this just 3 days ahead. Yeah, it will be the 40th anniversary.
Well, we're taping of it. It's going to air one day ahead.
That's excellent. That's wonderful.
First, and I think it's very appropriate that we celebrate the independence of day of Libya, which is September 1, 1969.
Yes.
The same way we celebrate what we call Independence Day, July 4th, 1776. A major turning point in history.
Exactly. So it's really,
I agree with that.
And after that, just to cut it, it's I did my BA in Tripoli,
Now, did
and
you
it
do
was
that
in English.
at Fateh University? No, it wasn't.
It wasn't called Al-Fateh
It wasn't
University
then.
at
What was
that
called
point.
then?
It was called just University of Tripoli.
Okay.
It was the Faculty of Education, and in fact, I was going to end up as a teacher of English. I did English.
Yeah, I can see that.
Thank you. But anyhow, I think I just had destiny had other plans for me. So soon after the revolution took place, there was really, well, I mean, revolutions mean a big change in all aspects of life.
Yes.
So with education also, hundreds of students were sent to study in the UK and United States.
Now, if I may, September 1 was a major day, 1969. It was about 2 weeks after the Woodstock Festival, about 3 weeks after the man first walked on the moon. Yeah, so it was a revolutionary era. Yeah.
Yes, Alan. Speaking about just a little digression about Woodstock. Of course, Woodstock, upstate New York. It's a wonderful place that I go to visit when I want to meditate and rest and write some poetry.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
So after that came for me the English period, if you like.
Were you studying English when you were in undergraduate, or
yeah, I did English as an undergraduate student.
Okay.
And then continued in the UK. It was in a small town called Bangor in North Wales, actually.
Oh, North Wales.
Yes. They never picked up any Welsh.
No, but they can really sing, can't they?
Oh, the Welsh.
They can sing, all those Joneses and so forth.
Oh, the Welsh, yes, indeed. It's
Celtic.
The Celtic.
Yeah.
Scenery was wonderful. I did my MA, rather, in applied linguistics.
Linguistics, that's interesting, very interesting.
So, so I kept within the realm of languages, you know.
Yes.
Then came
scholarly,
indeed. Came a period of I went back to Libya with my wife, and I only had one daughter at that point, and taught at the University of El-Fateh because the name was changed. English department.
Okay.
And
that's in Tripoli.
In Tripoli. Right. In 1975, you know, I started my, you know, sort of American journey.
Yes.
A journey which lasted till now, in a way, not uninterrupted though.
Yes.
And I went to a place I think that you are familiar with, Indiana University, Bloomington.
Bloomington, Indiana. Yes, it's lovely.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Where I did a Ph.D. I did my Ph.D.
in linguistics
there.
again.
In linguistics, but I went more into theoretical linguistics.
Theoretical linguistics. That's interesting. So you're trying to understand the relationship between the languages.
Exactly.
Of the world. A huge subject.
A huge subject. At that point, it was very much Chomsky's theory of transformative grammar.
So you were influenced by Chomsky.
Very much so. When I wrote my thesis, it was within what was called at that point the extended standard theory, which, as you just hinted, it's searching really for whatever universal in languages and trying to find universal principles.
What an interesting subject. It's so important. Yeah.
And if I may add something, Harold, it's with Chomsky, I think this...
That's Noam Chomsky.
Noam Chomsky, of course.
The famous,
and he has now become even more famous for his political writings. But I think what unifies his ideas and is this search for the universal, if you like. You know?
Well, okay, that's interesting.
In language, in politics, whatever.
It's very important, language. Do we know, I don't mean... I'm wondering if you were influenced by him politically or not, because he's a great dissident of the established order. But more to the point, linguistics itself, just a couple of minutes, you've taken time with that. That's a huge subject. And do we understand then the evolution, the relationship, the grammar between the various languages, and then try to trace back through history as best we can the evolution of the various languages of the world and the relationship between them?
Yes, Harold.
Huge
I couldn't have put it. You know, I mean,
what an interesting
I think you put it in a way that Mr. Chomsky himself probably would like. Yes, this is the search. Of course, it gets kind of technical, and it's amazing, by the way, that in a strictly linguistic sense, there is no primitive language.
Okay,
I mean, all languages are equally complex. And all human languages share devices that we would not find in an artificial language.
Oh,
for example,
go ahead,
in an artificial language like a computer, for example,
right.
there is no human language that lacks relative clauses. For example, that lacks relative clauses.
Relative clauses.
Yeah, elements with which, that, etc. All human languages have such devices.
They do. Isn't that interesting?
It's interesting.
That's
no
a commonality.
Whether it's Asian, African, Semitic, non-Semitic. You know. So it's. I think it just testifies to that language is an aspect of the human mind.
Don't want to. The trouble is, I'm interested in everything, and linguistics is something.
I can see that,
but
Harold,
no,
I'm warming up.
There's been like there's a link between Sanskrit and Greek, and there was an Indo-European family of languages.
Yes.
Then there's other families of languages, but there was a link between of the Indo-European, and there was looking for a Indo-European language group. Have we ever found that, or is there a commonality? Is it up in Kazakhstan somewhere? There's evidence of it.
To tell you the truth, Harold, I'm not very much into historical linguistics, but still, indeed, this proto. I mean, looking for the original, the Proto-Indo-European, and I think there is much evidence for that there is the Indo-European group, and then you have it's called sometimes the Hemito-Semitic or the Semitic languages. Turkic is another group, but the link seems to be there between Indo-European and the Semitic languages, if you like.
There's Arabic, a link between them, you think?
Arabic,
there is.
Hebrew,
it's not
Egyptian.
It's not distinct from the Indo-European family?
Well, I mean, the theory that you alluded to is that there may be some commonality, and there is a proto, if you like.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
For Indo-European as well as the Semitic languages. You know, or we may end up, I mean, all languages, I suppose, come from one source. But historical linguistics, of course, gets really complicated.
Yes, I'm sure.
Because you go into millennia of years.
Yes, but you've done your work, your Ph.D. work, in
but
that
that was
very interesting field.
Yes,
it must be really interesting. And you were influenced by Mr.
Chomsky indeed,
and others. There were other giants in that field.
Oh yes. I mean, Chomsky set up there was George Lakoff, a lot actually. And by the way, now speaking about Chomsky, his political writings fascinate me. I mean, we may not agree with everything he says.
No.
The last book I read of him was, I don't know, maybe you have read it, Survival and Hegemony?
I haven't.
It's an interesting book, Harold.
Yeah, he's written so many, and it's hard to keep up.
Oh, yes. The man is very prolific.
Yes,
linguistically and politically.
A real intellect.
He is indeed. I think one of the
intellectual, we should say.
I think one of the great intellects of the 20th century.
And happens to be someone who takes exception to a lot of the way the world is and has been organized along lines that are not what we would call in any true and real sense democratic.
I think
it's always been a major group who rules everything, and the other people are rather seen like serfs on a feudal estate. It leads well put, James Joyce, who was a great Irish poet, who he said, among others, and I say it all the time, to the chagrin of my viewers, because I say it all the time, it's a general thing. He had a Daedalus say, history is a nightmare from which I'm attempting to awaken. I like that line because history...
Okay, that's beautiful.
Do you have a view of history that things are progressing, getting, in a certain sense, better through time? From when we first appeared maybe 200,000 years ago, it would seem that there is progress being made, but there are changes, major changes that occur in that ought to be taken into account better than they are by people who are caught up in the paradigm and way of thinking of an earlier era, which is being transformed by the evolution of broader events, if you understand what I mean.
Yes,
and are we progressing? And is Libya part of that kind of a movement, or could be seen that way?
Yeah. No, it's Harold, do I subscribe to this view? It's a view that I would like very much to share, and I really would like to think of history as moving in that direction, you know, without necessarily reaching an end of history, of course. I mean, that...
Because we'll get into a new... I wonder if we're going to get into a new relationship to the cosmos. All of humanity evolved in Africa, and Libya has taken great interest in Africa more recently.
Definitely so, and speaking about Libya now and Africa, Yes, I mean, because we were just talking about history. So, I mean, in my own country, Libya, I can see this evolvement, if you like, you know. I can see even the ideas, you know, brought up by the leader, Muammar Gaddafi, who's very much, by the way, interested in history. I had the pleasure of seeing him, translating for him on a couple of occasions, and I could see his fascination with history, with the progression of history, with the dialectics, if you like, involved, and his own view of the state of the masses, the putting the slogan "democracy by the people for the people" into real practice, if you like.
Real practice,
the term that participatory democracy.
Yeah, that's a very different thing than representative democracy.
Representative democracy,
which is something that is a holdover from the revolution that got started, one would say, out of the Scottish Enlightenment, but in the United States of America, in 1776, there was set up a system that we have almost biblical faith in the founding fathers. We had an incredible array of political talent at that time, have set up a system that maybe has served well in many instances, but maybe in its basic assumptions in need of a qualitative transformation because of a qualitative transformation in the broader evolution of technological capability.
This is it. Yeah, I would like to see it that way, and just in terms of you know, in practical terms, like what I've seen in my own country with the participative democracy, or maybe for the viewers, if you like, it's a town hall democracy. I've seen people. I even took part in that myself. You know, in the late 80s, with these. The term that is used in Libya is people's congresses. Where I've seen things discussed, from even some strategic issues to the budget, to the
street light down the street,
exactly, or
street
something,
lamp, or the stop street, or something.
Now, there is indeed a serious attempt to put that into practice. A lot of people may say, well, that central government is still there, that it is not truly participatory, that people maybe are reluctant to do so. Now, all of that could be true.
Right. But it would almost have to be, if I may, Saadun, because when there is a major change made, there's always going to be people who are going to be you know, they're going to take exception to the change.
To the change, exactly.
Always
and to this shift in paradigm, if you like.
Yes, a shift, and there's always going to be a group that wants to disestablish the revolutionary principles and get back to the good old days, and that sort of thing.
Preserve the status quo.
Preserve the status quo, or relate to other powers in the world that see that new development as not in their own interest, that sort of thing. Like in Russia, they had to be very careful against counter-revolutionary things that were trying to offset what may be wrong, may be right, whatever they thought the Bolsheviks had done in Russia. There was a reaction against that, against much of the world, and there would always be. In the United States, we had the same thing. I think when we founded
the United States,
only about 1/3 of the people in 1776 were in favor of that. A third of them were completely, utterly against it, and so forth. So they have to be a group that will safeguard against that retroactive tendency.
Very interesting that you mentioned the United States. Much that Libya and the United States may be different in a number of ways, but in this, if we look at the 19th century United States and how it was looked upon, you know, and the huge changes that it has introduced into the world. We're not saying, of course, that the U.S. now is ideal, nor are we saying that Libya is ideal, but the thing is, I see these two countries, different perhaps in size, different, that as both has really championed, if you like, a real change, a real paradigm change.
Along the line
vanguard in a sense.
Yes, but along the line, the historical line of democracy, of greater justice and involvement of the mass of the people, rather than just a leadership element.
This is precisely,
as was the case in the emperors of Rome and so forth, or even the crowned heads of Europe.
So as an academic and an intellectual, and I'm not really, I don't want to make sort of, judgments that may not be accurate, but The way I see it in my own country, yes, I think there are positive changes. I think this experiment, if you like,
yes,
know,
right.
and history, I suppose, goes through experiments. Otherwise, if you always
how are you going to make progress?
Exactly, if you always
right.
preserve the status quo, if you're always afraid of.
Yeah.
So, yeah, in the general scheme of things,
Yeah.
so to speak, I'm optimistic. I mean,
Yeah.
things are not perfect, but
Yeah.
I think that there is definitely
but
a change
progress
towards
is
the
being-
better.
Progress. If we had to even go back to, let's say, 4 million years or something, there was Australopithecine. I mean, there was a hominoid line and Homo habilis.
Absolutely,
and it appears
absolutely.
It's
yes,
like
yes.
linguistics in a way. The
Yes.
DNA that we can do with linguistics, and also linguistic overlays on the DNA pattern of
Absolutely,
understanding
absolutely,
past
Harold,
patterns.
absolutely,
That
Harold.
it appears that Homo sapien, the thing that we're all
Yes, yes.
occurred in Africa. And Africa is the home of the whole Homo sapien line and its
all
many
the
diversities.
all the excavations, I
Yeah.
think, point to that.
Yeah.
So with the old line, the Homo, refresh my memory, the
Homo habilis. Well,
the
there was Homo
erectus,
erectus.
Homo
There was
erectus.
Australopithecine, Lucy,
Yes,
5
yes.
million years ago. But it all happened in
and the
Africa.
discoveries, and I've seen actually, yes. So, and Africa, now this big continent,
And Libya
mysterious
is
in a number
part-
of ways. Indeed,
Libya is part of
is
the
a north.
54 countries that make up Africa, and they're beginning to think about getting together.
And this. I'm glad you reminded me of this. I mean, Libya, of course, is a North African country.
Yes,
And
Maghreb.
if you look at the map, it's right there, very central.
In the middle of everything.
In the middle of everything.
Yes, indeed.
So on the map, it's very conspicuous, and it goes from the Mediterranean right into Chad and Niger, to the south.
Yeah.
And the leader, Muammar Gaddafi, is now, of course, the chairman, the president of the African Union.
That's very good. That's much better than what they had with the
yes.
the one that preceded
his predecessor.
and
the name eludes me, but
the Organization of African Unity.
Exact. And in all honesty, I think he's been really the father of this idea. He really fought hard in a way, for Africa to convince the continent to have this. So now we ended up with the African Union.
Yeah.
He has also his idea of the United States of Africa.
Thank you. That's very, very important.
Which,
yeah.
Well, it hasn't come into effect yet.
But they're laying, they're effectively laying the ground. If I understand, but I think that a good percentage, if not more than half, of the heads of state of the continent of Africa, all 54, came to CERT or to Libya. They had a conference,
was a recent
and they're
conference.
laying the groundwork, like our Articles of Confederation or something,
and I think
for the establishment of an entity,
right,
the United States of Africa. A good idea.
There is an authority, I think it was called, that was established in the CERT Declaration, and there is a movement towards this idea of the United States of Africa. As we, earlier we were talking about the movement of history.
Yes.
How the vision is there,
right,
and the attempt to turn this vision into reality is there.
So, yeah.
Africa is, of course, there are so many difficulties in that. It is vast. There are problems,
of course,
people suffering from poverty, disease. By the way, by line of work in the United Nations, I mean, I could see a lot of the statistics. Some of them are devastating.
Yes, it's awful.
I think with people like our leader, Muammar Gaddafi, and others, I suppose, who share the view, there is hope for the continent.
Yeah, we did a program a couple of months ago with the president of Senegal, Wade, and he is in full support of that idea.
Yes.
Absolutely full support of the idea. That anchors it there, and it's part of the dream of Kwame Nkrumah, even a revolutionary-minded
These were, of course, the
Stokely
founding
Carmichael.
fathers, Nkrumah, Jamal Abdel Nasser.
Right. Well, the Nasser more relates to, it seems to me, but it is also, there is...
the non-aligned movement.
Libya is also part of the larger Ummah of the Islamic world.
That is true.
Which is, again, the middle of that, because it stretches out to Indonesia, does it not?
Indeed
and
it does.
it happens to be that much of the so-called legitimate world has a sense that the problem in the world now that communism has been overcome, this organizing principle of the so-called international order, seems to be, or much of it, with propaganda. We got 1/4 of the world population that are Islamic, from Mauritania to Indonesia, and they're targeting Islam as an enemy in an inappropriate way, because there's much that Islam could teach us, and it's a rich culture, and the West would do better to try and understand not the extremes and the culturally based notions that are called Islamic, but Islam as a culture that has rich roots and important things to teach the modern world.
And I'm glad our conversation turned this way. You know, spoke about Africa, but indeed, I mean, with starting from Libya, being African, being Muslim, being Arab, being Mediterranean, it's all a part of its
right.
So this thing about Islam. As you said, you're talking about what, more than 1 billion?
Well, I think it's about people. 1/4 of the world population. About 1.5 billion people are of the Islamic, and it's fast growing.
It's fast growing. As a Muslim myself, as a Muslim intellectual, by the way, I was here with my family, my wife, 4 daughters and son, who are devout New Yorkers.
Okay, you know, right.
And we were devastated, literally, but the tragic events of 9/11.
Yes.
And it's something that was really painful and devastating, not only because of the loss of human lives that happened there, but you see, the realization that my own daughter and my son could have been there, because just the day before they were there, you know, they had a cup of coffee at the tower. So the thing is, so many Muslims were so devastated by that, but even more by the way Islam was portrayed.
Yeah,
after
right.
You can't imagine, Harold, how painful that became.
Yes.
Because as you said, Islam is very much akin to Christianity, is very much akin to Judaism.
Of the book.
Indeed, and the Quran, of course, refers to the people of the book, Al-Kitab in Arabic. The values, if you like, of Islam are very much like Christianity or Judaism, or indeed that what you may find in Buddhism, you may find in, by the way, one of the richest traditions, Harold, and they know how interested you are in philosophy and aspects of the Sufism in Islam. I was reading Muhyiddin ibn Arabi, a very, he's in a way, a poet.
And a poet.
And a mysticist.
And a mysticist. Okay,
and the comprehensivist.
Oh, like, that I like. I like that term.
There was a line of poetry there, and that is, I believe in the religion, in the religion of love. And all the religions, if you like, are enshrined in my heart.
Okay, that's good. It seems to be all the wisdom schools have discovered the same principles.
This is the real
roundly ignored too much by our political leaders over historical
And I think our role now, Harold, people like ourselves, all intellectuals in the world, is really to stand fast in the face of extremism, bigotry, misunderstanding. I would like to write more about this myself. Because it's a danger, no matter what. I mean, fundamentalist thinking or extremist thinking, be it Islamic, be it Christian, be it whatever, you know. Because I think it very much excludes the other, and the other becomes literally.
I'm very distrustful of anything that tends to. I'm very distrustful of anything that tends to find the enemy somewhere that they can demonize. Because it's been used so much.
You spoke about communism, which was the enemy.
And what we want is understanding and so forth. And that's what we need. And then also, but not to give up on the idea that we can question everything, but we question it in an intellectual way and try to draw upon the best that we have in order to help the most of us in the most ecologically appropriate way. And there's great opportunity before us now collectively as a human society that is unprecedented in history.
With the technological revolution?
Yes, particularly. Amazing things. Every day, Saadun, there comes over a revolution over the transom in every field, everywhere. It seems to be like we're coming to a quickening you know, that exponentially in the technologies developing
exponentially indeed is
and there's
is the right
reason
expression.
for great optimism in that. Now,
which makes us all, I think, as reasonable people, as intellectuals, as you know, citizens of this world, if you like, you know, it is our role and our responsibility to make use of this great revolution and turn it into something good, into something positive.
I think so.
Because there is also the danger of it being
the danger has grown equally with the positive. The positive and the negative has grown recently.
That is true.
I don't want to dwell on it or anything like that, but I do believe from modeling that the weapons systems that exist, that fortunately, in my view, Mr. Gaddafi in Libya has gotten off that thinking of that.
Definitely,
the weapons systems of destruction that have been used by political leaders to gain power over other people and steal their grain and resources to benefit that whole historical pattern, those weapon systems, I believe now, particularly with germ things that are done, the intellectuals are bought off, but that I believe they've reached a point where it is now species lethal.
Species lethal.
That if there was an unleashing like Sarajevo, 1917, guns of August, unexpected things happening and crazy things get loose. If the weapons were unleashed, it wouldn't be like even as recently as the Second World War when we were trying to kill each other as best we possibly could and were impotent by the impotency of the degree of technological extension of conscience. But I think we've crossed that line around about 1970, where those weapons became, if they were to be unleashed, there wouldn't be a single human survivor. Do you think that's
Harold,
possibly the case or not?
I fully agree there.
You do.
I think there is.
I think much of the intellectual community does.
Yes. It's. I think the such weapons, you know, falling into the wrong hands. It's going to be more devastating, more destructive than anything that humankind has ever known. Which makes
certainly that's the case. It would ruin civilization.
Yes.
Now we can do that for sure.
And if I may go back to Libya, you know, with the brave decision, in my opinion, which Libya
2003.
took. Yes, about you know,
a historic thing.
Indeed. You know, there you are in our own ways, trying to make history, so to speak.
Sure, of course.
So getting rid of weapons of mass destruction, which I hope at some point
would happen for the whole world.
Would do, you know, other
it's an example
would do.
that could be taken up by the world, including everybody.
This is, by the way, what Libya has kept saying, that what Leader Gaddafi has kept saying. He felt just a little disappointed in that. He said, I mean, Libya perhaps has not been compensated enough, so to speak, or understood enough for what it has done. It was done voluntarily. Yeah. I was just reading his speech on the. I'm sorry to interrupt. And the recent speech that he gave in the conference of the non-aligned movement in Sharm el-Sheikh, and I'll be able to give you the text later.
Thank you.
He spoke about these weapons of mass destruction. It's very much what we were saying now.
It's a huge issue. It's a huge reality, existentially significant.
What are we going to do with that, except, you know, sort of we end up mutually destroying each other.
Yeah, well,
and that the world should come to such a realization. But he did say, of course, that the superpowers, particularly the United States, the United Federation of Russia now, and you know, China, etc., that they have maybe even more responsibility in this sense in showing that their own arsenals are being reduced.
Yeah, but they're not.
But they're not.
They're not. And the research goes on.
So I feel like the more powerful states are not really showing the right example.
Yeah. Oh, I would agree with that. Nor do I would suggest the so-called international community, which is largely patterned philosophically upon the example of July 4th, 1776, and the principles that were established, both economically, politically, socially, culturally, and so forth, have been in place and are in place and thought of as holy or something, but they're not adequate to what the future requires in terms of involving the world in a pattern where the adverse side of the destructive scenario could liberate the full potential of everybody rather than just a few people at the top, which has been the historical pattern, is needed. And that Libya and their model and what they're trying to do, much derided by many naysayers and so forth, cynics and so forth, is a model that is relevant more to that future
I think
coming
so.
out of Libya than it is coming out as the United States was relevant to the dawning future, to feudal Europe. So I believe Libya, with its attempt at what it's trying to do, participatory democracy, also economic sharing of ownership of technology and the means of production, is ahead of historical curve from which the world could learn rather than again, if you understand what I'm saying.
No, Harold,
I think that model holds.
And I'm glad. In fact, I couldn't have put it in a better way. It's a lot of people, of course, be it in the West or even in some other countries, even in the being, if you like, rather dismissive, of the Libyan model. Because they look at Libya, well, what could that small country present to the world?
The aristos in Versailles and in Europe looked at the United States of America in exactly the same way, dismissive. They don't know what they're talking about. We've got they have our assize courts, and we have our hereditary heritage, and we have all of this. And they had it's called an agent regime.
An agent, exactly. I mean,
the system in place called the international order, without justice, or without appropriately relating to the means of production and involving people in the economic order, is like an agent regime, perhaps, in terms of what the future requires. One model that might really be studied seriously by everybody is the one that's trying to be worked out, and is trying to be worked out in the country of Libya, that celebrates tomorrow, when this program airs, its 40th anniversary.
I'm really glad that I came to this program, because at least we had this chance.
I am too, Saadun.
Thank you, Harold. And so seeing Libya in this light is, because, when we refresh my memory, the Gestalt theory, I mean, looking at the whole. You see, the thing is, I mean, if you want to find faults,
you can
with
find
anything. I mean, even if I start looking at sometimes your own jacket, or there's something there, there's something there, but But the thing is, or even the thing is, just try to see the whole pattern and try to see it, as you were saying, and I really like that very much, in a historical perspective.
Historical and a comprehensive.
And you mentioned the word comprehensivist, which I like, because this means yes, I mean, the picture may not be perfect. There could be a few things here, a few things there. And you can say, oh, no, but in practice you're doing so and so. Yes, the U.S. is doing so and so in practice. Libya is doing so and so. But let us try to see if there is a pattern there.
Yeah.
If there is, and this is, it is, of course, the responsibility also of Libyan intellectual and academics to try actually, sort of to see more into their own model. Because sometimes we ourselves feel, well, do we really have much to present to the world? And if you start sort of, not being too sure of your own contribution, this is not good. One does not have to be arrogant or
that's a careful line
do you agree
to
with
walk?
Exactly.
Be self-confident but not arrogant.
Self-confident but not arrogant. And you see, look, I may have something there that we can present to the world. And I think this what has been what Gaddafi has been saying throughout the way. But look, I have something there that I'm trying to, in all his interviews, he tries to convey that,
Yeah, that's right.
And sometimes I think he generally feels that he may be misunderstood.
Yeah, right.
Or misinterpreted.
I'm pretty sure the founding fathers of the United States thought they were misunderstood by George. George III, I think, called George Washington a terrorist, if I'm not mistaken. I know they called Nelson Mandela a terrorist. In recent history, that kind of thing.
Yes.
It's a term that's used, and you got this. And when you get to a time of qualitative change, that's when the tension gets the highest.
Yes, I mean,
and we may be coming to a point
Harold.
If we get the point where we can destroy the species, that could be modern. And then on the other side, we have an unprecedented capability of taking care of everybody in a way that historically we couldn't.
And that's what makes our time, I think, so unique,
yes.
Harold.
And the ecology. We have a capability, but the systems we've inherited are not adequate to allow us to do what we're fully able to do in a democratic. We should be on the outlook for models that might be relevant.
Harold. I think this is a point in history where, as you said, the if you like, the salvation of mankind and its destruction almost exists
Yeah,
you know, side by
in
side.
a unique way.
In
I mean,
a unique way,
because,
probably, which maybe has never really occurred in history in this
that's right.
immensity,
yeah,
if you like.
probably people sat around in Cro-Magnon caves and said, boy, this is really something. That mastodon is really beautiful. It's new. We had a self-reflective conscience. I don't know how what language they used to convey it, but
well, some kind of a proto-language.
Right, some sort. It would definitely be proto, yeah. But anyway, but now we get to a point where it really is a time for us to think maybe terms like quality, liberation, or something that's been the aim historically, that we're coming of a time of qualitative transformation, and the intellectual community at large seems to be falling down on the job at not being able to provide models or alternatives that are comprehensively able to take into account.
I believe so, Harold.
The intellectuals do not have a model that is able to subsume the historically inherited paradigms of paradigms in a way that could be inclusive not only of qualitative transformation, but in a way where the people responsible for the historically inherited institutions would be able to understand it, maybe a little difficult at first, but able to stay their hand and stay with it and then be involved too. So that it could involve everybody in a transformation,
you know, Harold,
that seems elusive when you're in the womb. You can't know what it is outside the womb.
This is beautifully put. And the point that you mentioned about the intellectuals, and let us, I mean, I think there is a huge responsibility, and I'm not saying, of course, that we don't have, there are many responsible intellectuals all over the world.
Oh yeah.
But maybe, just maybe, I'm saying yes, maybe a little less than we would like things to be. You see, Harold, as you were talking, you just reminded me of people with whom we agree or disagree, but they were great figures. Jean-Paul Sartre, for example. Edward Said, you know, the late Edward Said here in the U.S.
Wonderful,
Chomsky that we spoke about, Bertrand Russell. I mean, just to name a few.
Alfred Whitehead.
Exactly. I mean, these people, I think,
Einstein. We got these geniuses.
The epitome of the responsible intellectual. You know, people who genuinely believe that.
But in the political, economic realm, we're still, even though, I mean, we're in the throes of a great international calamity and economically, but we're still caught up within the economic paradigm of history that is not adequate. I mean, Mr. Summers, that kind of thing, but we need something new in terms of the way we're going to relate people to the way things are being produced. Mr. Keynes said we're going to be faced with technological unemployment, and we distribute all income throughout the world to the masses of the people through their labor participation. All the assets are owned by a tiny class, except in one particular place where in Libya they say you must be a partner or an owner as a way of distributing income. So it undercuts the labor theory of value that informs all economic theory, with the possible exception of Libya. As a model.
Hopefully, this is what I'd like to hope for. When was the last time, if I may do the asking, when was the last time you were in Libya?
It was about 97. It was about 10 years ago, I think. And it was quite a while ago, yeah.
Okay, you've seen some of the slogans.
Yeah, I've been there about 10 times.
So it reminded me of the
only country in the world
partners,
I'm interested
not
in.
wage workers. And this is the attempt. It's an attempt really sort of, you know, to redistribute the wealth. Not, and this is what Gaddafi on a number of occasions used the term, which is a number of people have also used, the third way, so to speak, you know. And he was at pains trying to explain that, look, it is not a Soviet type, if you like, socialism that I'm seeking, or even the China model, or what have you, or nor
that's old-fashioned capitalism.
Old-fashioned or rampant capitalism.
And that international order is old-fashioned capitalism that serves well 20% of the people at the top, but not the mass of the people.
And I suppose you can see it in our current economic crisis to some extent.
And Mr. Keynes warned we're going to be displacing labor in the productive process, and Mr. Gaddafi says people who get wages only are like a sort of slave to the people who give them the wages.
Who give them the wages, exactly.
When the technology is producing the wealth and it's all owned by a tiny class, you got to share ownership.
I've seen
as a way of
some
distributing
enterprises
income,
now being owned, if you like, where in a way, I mean, ownership is still there. But these people, like 5-6 people, you know, who are Harold, Saadun, we run a small enterprise, you know,
yeah.
which I suppose you can still get in the United States.
But they don't want you to hire anybody there. Everyone must be a partner. That's very interesting in Libya, the sign. It says partners, not wage earners.
Not wage workers.
We must do away, in the interview that's going to air tomorrow, re-air tomorrow, we did in 1991 with him. It's going to air on the 1st of September, 40th anniversary with him. He said, we must do away with the wage system.
Exactly.
Now that is really intensive, and he believes it.
A friend of mine
and the future of the world might require that we do away with that idea.
This is really what I would like. And I think it's, Libya is moving into that direction.
Yeah, so I thank you very much. One of the problems is we only have an hour. We could talk for 20 hours easy, couldn't we?
Have we already used our 1 hour?
No, we still got a few minutes left. And we want to get to the fact that you are a serious translator, and you're also an aficionado of and understand poetry. And I know that you have a couple of books that you brought with you that we maybe would let people know about. And I congratulate you.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah, because you're not only a linguist, but you're also an intellectual and a translator of Arabic and that. So maybe we could talk a little bit about that.
No, that's nothing is dearer to my heart, really. It's by the way, the last almost 10 years here in my New York years, I spent translating with the United Nations.
Okay, yeah, you were
doing a lot of work.
Was that what agent? Where within the United States were you doing that work?
Just the last. From 1999.
No, I know, but within the United States, within the United Nations itself, under what office?
That was the Arabic Translation Service.
Okay, good. Okay, good.
And the translation took place mainly from English into Arabic or French into Arabic.
It's very
but
good. Yeah.
In addition
with
to
nuance
that,
and poetic appreciation, that's very important.
But translation for me, as I mentioned, of course. My background in linguistics took me into translation.
Yes,
so
indeed.
to speak, you know, and with my love for poetry, literature, etc., which started when I was a student of English, with all the beautiful, you know, as a young man, of course, that I liked the Keats poems and you know Shelley, the Byron, etc.,
Lord Byron,
and the Wordsworth.
Thank God for the poets.
Daisy Fields.
Yeah, right.
So thank God that that there is poetry in the world. So what I did, and this is really a part of something that I'm doing now, I translated, which is not an easy undertaking, translated some Arabic poetry into English.
Do you have a couple books?
Maybe would you like?
Let me try it. Now give me a chance. I'm going to try it. This is. Here. This is. I think this gentleman is involved in the. We're going to hold this up and try to come in on. It's going to give him a couple of minutes to come in on this. But talk to first of all.
And this is the book that you're holding now. The a collection of poems by Mr. Abdurrahman Shalgam, who is now Libya's permanent representative to the United Nations.
Oh, very good. I would like to meet
and I hope you'll have a chance to meet him.
I should like very much.
He's a very good speaker. So in Arabic, it's called Asrar, which I would have translated as secrets, just to give you a glimpse into a translator's way. And then I felt, no, I would translate it as intimacies.
Okay, could you read a piece? I think you could read a little piece of the English, right?
So this
it's in the poetry, and I know the people at Google are trying to get a thing where they could do language translation cybernetically, first pedestrian way, so they could get some idea, but even to where they could do it in terms of a poetic understanding of the relationship. You think that would be a great thing if we could accomplish?
Indeed, it would. And
we would speak in English, it would come out in poetic Arabic. Wouldn't that be wonderful?
With the technological means that we have now, it shouldn't be too difficult.
Yeah.
And with our comprehensivist, I think nothing is more comprehensive than poetry is. So this is called In the Presence of Omar Al-Khayyam. Omar Al-Khayyam, and a lot of your viewers, of course, would have known or read the quartets.
Yes, right.
Translated by a great translator, Fitzgerald.
Okay, I didn't know. Okay.
It's wonderful. So, so I'll just read now.
Yeah, just a few lines.
Okay, just a few lines. Grieve not. The sparkle is the creator of the fire, and to the breath the lion is enslaved. Go to where fire devoured the sparkle of the breath. Go to the source of all destinies. Roaring in the grips of the unknown, spread sunset towards the yet to come.
Beautiful.
Spread sunset towards the yet to come. The other page of the world is splendor and sun.
Oh.
Grieve not. Kindle the lighthouses of joy with tomorrow's love, for tomorrow is certain to come.
Oh, right, that's beautiful. When were those?
This, by the way, was published by Global Scholarly Publications.
But when were the words put forth? When would it have been, the date? When would that
that's, I think I have the...
Just roughly, even the century, or...
No, this, you mean this poem itself?
No, the original.
The original is very recent by Mr. Shalgam. The original, I think, came out in probably 1999.
That's
2000.
Beautiful. Okay.
Yes.
Oh, I heard you say Omar Khayyam.
No. Let me just clarify this for our viewers. So the poet here, the Thai translator, is trying to conjure up, so to speak, or rather to relive Khayyam's experience through his own lenses.
Oh, that was my confusion.
So he's bringing a historical figure.
That's contemporary.
That's contemporary.
It's beautiful, and it's like Bucky Fuller was a comprehensive, and he used to talk about synergy. Synergy is the behavior of systems unpredicted by the sum of the parts. There's something more than the sum of the parts.
Than the sum of the parts,
And in cybernetics, information overload within a system permits pattern recognition. So we're getting to where we can have comprehensive understanding. And when we said that humanity may be like in the womb about to leave and come into a new relationship to the cosmos, that you can't see within the womb. It is when the event occurs, the liberation occurs, that you get into a new relationship, and that poem targets that beautifully.
Yes, and I think it delves into that.
That's beautiful. That really is.
In that, and I like your metaphor here in this coming out of the womb to see the larger picture.
Well, it's in biological evolution, it's called punctuated equilibrium. You get to a point of quantitative change, and then there's qualitative. It's the process by which speciation and new develops and appears out of the old.
Out of the old. So let's hope that
we only got about 5 minutes
into that direction.
We only got about 5 minutes. You have another book we could show
the
quick?
other one is interesting.
That's beautiful. Am I able to get a copy of this?
Yes, I will.
Could I put it on my page? I have a page with a lot of quotes. I would love to put that on my page.
It would be a pleasure.
Okay, let me do that as soon as I get home.
I'll try to get you a copy.
Okay, let me hold it up to them see this.
This one you can show the Arabic.
You want the Arabic? Let's show the Arabic. Come in if you can. Here you go. Come on over. Come on over.
I see it.
Here we go. Up and around, and here we come. Okay, there we go. That's the Arabic.
That's wonderful, yes.
And now let's switch to the,
with the picture of the poem, of the poet. I beg your pardon.
Okay. So now, talk to this. You got a couple minutes. A soundbite. Okay.
So, now that we're getting our viewers into poetry, this is a Syrian poet who died few years ago, called Nizar Qabbani, a very famous Arab poet, actually. He wrote very much about love, about, he elevated the status of women.
Oh, wonderful, yeah, right.
And for him, the female, if you like, is the essence, it's the I mean, I think it's very much, and he did a lot through his poetry to elevate women's status,
Wonderful. Or the female function in the universe. I think it's good to speak.
This is a theme. This is a theme that's
even if you go back to evolutionary process, I mean, much of the developed things on this planet, certain organic things, it was just 8/10 or something. It was just bacteria. And there was nothing male, female, but it's probably good to think in terms of the universe of female and male functions. Bucky Fuller used to say there's only compression and tension, and the tension goes through the hole, and compression involves it. It's rather like a soccer ball reality. That's a little bit. We can't go into that now, but I think that's really appropriate. And you want to have the tension resonate on the edge of the hole, so that. Anyway, that's the thing I want to get. Anyway, it's beautiful that you're doing that.
I don't know if we still have a couple of minutes.
Yeah, we do. We have just about 2 minutes.
The third book, I don't know if this comes out.
Yes, please.
And this was also published here in the US.
Let me hold it.
It's called The General in Victoria Station.
Okay. Now let's try and get this one too, if you can, Josh. And it's called The General in Victoria Station, and Other Stories by Muzrati.
Ali Muzrati is a Libyan writer.
Libyan, okay.
He's a Libyan writer. He's now in his, he's still alive in his 80s. And an interesting collection of short stories. I hope I'll be able to give you a copy.
Well, I'm waiting for them to see if they can. I'm going to keep holding it. Talk, and he's so the arts are alive and well. I'm very happy to see that. I think something like 50% of the investment in Libya is for education. They put great attention on education, and the country is growing.
Nothing makes me happier
very
than
rapidly.
That. And I'm glad that we're ending on this note. And also, it may interest you to know.
Yeah, we got it. There.
Wonderful, wonderful.
It's a little bit hard to see.
Yeah, because of the color, I suppose.
The color
you know,
and everything
yes.
doesn't stand out.
But
this is one of the many poets and intellectuals of Libya that this gentleman is involved with in translating, and also having a larger take on the human condition, as is apropos of the intellectual class of which I guess we're both part, and of which I think still has to be thinking and calling forth more vision. The vision thing is hard for the political. It's a thing from the intellectual community, and the intellectual community, as much as Mr. Chomsky or the other people and people who are thinking, we haven't got a vision thing that's going to be inclusive of everybody in a way that's adequate to what the future requires, in my mind. And I think the intellectual community really has to do some serious thinking along lines that the vanguard position, possibly, or giving it that thought, that's trying to be done both politically and economically, culturally, in the country of Libya, I think is really worth consideration rather than deriding, which is too much the attitude of much of the world toward that country. I think they're a vanguard country, and I congratulate you for having been born there.
Thank you very much.
Enlighten us to
I really can't agree more. I can't agree more. I think there is something interesting, something genuine, something good.
New and good.
Or at least potentially good.
And comprehensively appropriate to what the future requires.
Yes. So my plea really to, not just to intellectuals, to everybody, it's just not to ignore or to dismiss what is going on in that small country, small in terms of its population, but
large
really,
in terms of its vision.
I think so, and potentials.
Yeah, and it should be seen that way, if I may. And this is going to air on September 31, the program you and I are taping now.
Nothing
this
can
is
be
on
more
the
opportune,
eve.
really.
So when this program airs, it's on the eve of the celebration of September 1, 1969, a major date in the history of mankind, in my view, comparable to July 4th, 1776, in my mind. And in fact, it's got the groundwork for bringing a new way of thinking, the same way the United States of America brought to feudal Europe.
As a Libyan, and I'd like to say this in all sincerity, I mean, nothing can make me more happy, nothing can make me more proud to see September 1st being compared with the 4th of July, because the 4th of July was indeed a great landmark in the history of humanity, and I'd like to think of the 1st of September also in the same terms. Nothing can make me more happy
of this time, and should be seen
more proud. It's and as we see
and the program with Mr. Gaddafi is going to air tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow.
Yeah, one we did with him in 1991, a very thoughtful
I would love
person,
to see that.
And we should be seeing it in those terms.
So I thank you very much for having me as your guest.
I thank you for being such a wonderful, intellectually inclined, poetically sensitive person, and out of the country of Libya, and now American citizen. Thank you for viewing. It's your pleasure to have his perceptions. Thanks again for coming in.